My next guest is Lorenz. He is a health coach. He is such a lovely soul, and I can't wait for you to hear this episode. He's also the host of the podcast show Ketones and Coffee, even though he gave up coffee. And it's a great podcast all about whole foods, ketogenic diets, but all kinds of information on mental health, nutrition. I was a guest on his show, which is how I met Lorenz. And I just love his view on things. And I really wanted to talk to him about his journey and his healing because it has a lot to do with mental health and nutrition. And so that's mostly what we're talking about is mental health and nutrition in this episode. So I hope that you enjoy listening to this conversation with Lorenz as much as I enjoyed having the conversation. Lorenz, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm so excited to talk to you because I know about your story and I want the rest of the world to know about your story.
I'm so grateful to be on your show and such a fan of your show and such an honor to be here.
Thank you. Tell me how to say your last name so that we don't get that messed up.
So it's Manaig, but Manaig is good too. Yeah.
Okay. I got it. All right. Well, we'll make sure everybody knows how to get to your show and your coaching. So I loved being on your podcast, Ketones and Coffee
Yeah.
podcast. We had a good time. Yeah. So I'm excited to hear a little bit too about what you've learned from all the people you've been interviewing, like how you're changing, if anything, some of what you're doing based on all
Yeah.
these people that you're interviewing.
So yeah, I think we have to go back first into why I started in the
Yes.
first place.
Yes. Let's do that.
Yeah, and I'm a health coach and I advocate for sustainable healthy lifestyle,
Yes.
sustainable living, and understanding, the four pillars of health. Now, it took me years to understand just the importance of these critical pieces because, I'm happy to share right now, and I wish someone had taught me, these principles earlier. And just looking back, I want to start at my childhood because,
Yeah, let's do
um,
that.
yeah,
I love that. Yeah.
yeah, because I think, for your listeners to have that perspective on how I learned. First of all, I wasn't always this way, and about 6, 7 years ago, I experienced a severe panic attack that led to major depression.
Mhm.
Looking back, took me years to understand. Like I said, looking back now, my childhood, I realized that my upbringing wasn't focused on these things, and it took me massive struggles, right, setbacks, which led to suffering. And before I made a change and truly took control, that's why I became so passionate about this because people need to learn about this, and it's so important. Before becoming a health coach, even before I discovered keto, I thought I knew what self-care means,
Yeah.
for my own well-being. A
Right.
lot of people are suffering needlessly. I want to tell you my story, and it's part learning about myself and then learning about nutrition.
Mhm.
So outside I look great, but inside I was suffering from chronic anxiety and
Mhm.
depression. My
Yeah.
my mental health suffered because I believe, you know, I was naive and ignorant at the time. I follow what I see on social media about
Sure.
fitness,
Mhm.
low fat this,
Right.
pumping iron, right? I thought that formula can cure my anxiety and depression, but what I didn't realize is I was just shoving it all down, basically ignoring it.
Right.
Um, so back to my childhood, I'm born and raised in the Philippines, so
Mhm.
I was born in a culture that lacks sympathy about mental health. God, I hope it's different now, right?
Right.
But it wasn't embraced growing up. But yeah, I didn't think mental illness was real. And
Right. Right.
I was dead wrong. And this is why I want to share my story to no one's fault though, because I just downloaded everyone's idea
Yeah.
around me of how to live a healthy life.
Sure.
Um, to point out, elders in our culture, once they hit 60, diabetes. And it's getting younger and younger now. And that was normal to them. They think 60 is old because
Got it.
disease show up early in my culture.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
as a
That's
young
just
buck,
the norm. Uh-huh.
yeah, yeah. And it looking at, and I have friends right now that has diabetes and it's getting younger and younger. Back then I partied a lot, but
Mhm.
I I was by myself when I was by myself growing depressed, but I didn't care much to address it, and that
Mhm.
was about to change. 7 years ago started a wild roller coaster ride for me, which ended up in a severe depression.
Right.
It was the darkest time. My anxiety worsened, and the job at the time that I had was, I had to self-medicate myself just to step into that office.
Right.
Very stressful environment.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
but it wasn't the only reason though. And one night I experienced a situation where I had a panic attack
Mhm.
leading to a full-blown manic episode.
Mhm.
And to this day, it's very hard for me to go back to
Yeah.
that time. And it was determined to be related to stress. And
Sure.
then fear took over my life for a few years after that. And then
Mhm.
honestly, I thought I was going crazy.
Right.
And it brought me to my knees, and I
Mhm.
actually thought I could die. It was almost an irrational fear looming over me. It took me a year in therapy before I could, find somebody that practices cognitive behavioral therapy, and that was what started my journey. And
Mhm.
it put me to put it in perspective. I was 26 years old that back then, and
Right.
I slept in my mom's bedroom, curled up,
Mhm. Yeah.
curled up like a baby. That's how scared I was, and I didn't go out. I didn't know what I was,
Mhm.
but my body was in flight or fight mode, right?
Exactly. Yes. Yep.
So so I wasn't sleeping for 3 straight days.
Right.
I'm in fear. And
Terrible. Yeah. Just and so
so
many
mm,
people, which is this story sounds, unusual. It's unfortunately not
mm,
unusual. And
yeah.
so I'm so grateful that you're sharing it. I'm sorry that you had to go through
Yeah.
that, but what's so amazing is that you kept going and you kept looking for the answers. So it sounds like you knew therapy might be helpful. And
Mm.
I mean, I think most people start there because that makes sense. And was that helpful at all? Do you feel like that, I mean, got you
Yeah.
stable at least?
Great point, by the way, that a lot of people are suffering right now.
Yeah.
Matt Bazuki, the son of the founders of the Bazuki Family Foundation, the same thing happened to their son, Matt, and he did metabolic ketogenic therapy and he fully recovered. They now partner and fund efforts to create that awareness, the science called metabolic psychiatry, to just create awareness about the diet and mental health.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, back to your question. My therapist at the time was helping me using cognitive behavioral therapy,
Sure.
and she sent me links for meditation. Then I started reading about meditation to
Okay.
calm myself down, right back to
Yeah. Things to
fight
help
or
the
flight
nervous
mode,
system.
the
Yeah.
nervous system.
Yeah.
and it did help. It sort of put me on the right track by incorporating self-care, and then that introduced me to books like Michael Singer's Third Soul,
Yep.
just learning about myself. And
Mhm.
it helped a lot in that sense.
But
And also
still not a
mhm.
cure.
No, it's not. I'm starting to learn about myself at this point, and just learning about the environment that I'm in, what I'm thinking actually impacts my overall health. And I haven't discovered nutrition yet at this point, and it will take me another 3 years to discover what foods are actually good for me. And
Mm.
so also shout out to my wife, because if not for my wife, I don't know what that would have happened to me, because I always say this, she saved my life because I was able to tell her everything. I felt supported, which I believe has, saved my life.
Absolutely.
She
Yeah.
was strong. She gave me strength to keep fighting. But there was one point that when she broke down, because it was weighing on her too,
Mhm.
I realized I have to help me. because no one is coming to save me. Not even she was there, but I still had to do the work. When I
Right.
realized that everything has shifted, when I realized that I have to do it myself, I have to bring myself up. And I don't know why I was just waiting for somebody to come and save me. But when I realized nobody's coming,
Mhm.
that's when everything shifted. That was a turning point in my journey
That's a
where,
huge point. I
Mhm.
want to just
Yeah,
emphasize it because I don't think it's emphasized enough. There
yeah,
is a point. It's kind of like when you're about to do something new, like go off the diving board when you're a kid or something. There's some point that really shifts in you. And I think for you, that realization, no one is coming. I
yeah,
can save myself, or I can continue to wither on the vine
yeah,
here, or
yeah,
but this is the choice I have. So yeah, that support, and you can have tons of support, people saying, you can do it, come on, we've got it, but only you can make the decision.
yeah,
Only you can go off the diving
yeah.
board. So that is a really important shift. Do you remember feeling the shift? Because that's a mental shift, but did you feel it in your body too? Or was it mostly just a thought shift?
I started taking action. I started doing things that I would normally do. And
Okay.
just looking back now, doing the things that I have done to bring myself here in hindsight, yeah, I felt it. But in the moment, I don't think I'm realizing it that I'm
Right.
shifting.
Yeah.
But just the fact that I may lose my wife, the thought that I may lose her because
Uh-huh.
she's been such a rock for me made that shift. That was my tipping point there, right? Okay,
Right.
it's either I stay here and wait and wait and wait for my therapist to say something, spark something in me,
Right.
or this magic pill to help me finally get rid of what I'm feeling.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I realized it was me,
Yeah.
I have to do it.
Yeah.
I have to take control.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I took control. That was when I followed and surrounded myself with a lot of positivity. And that's when I realized positivity is not just something that people say. Like
Yeah.
you can actually be positive
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
every day. So yeah, I was changing. The
Yeah.
minute I realized it, I was changing.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Yeah, and
Mhm.
I love that too. Like this is, but you're making different behaviors, you're having different thoughts. But I mean, psychology 101 or mindfulness 101 is where we put our attention or our focus grows. And so you are then putting your focus and attention on positivity. And so that will grow if that's where you're putting your
Yeah.
focus and your attention. So I think that's an important. What year was this? When about where are we in the
Yeah, so this happened, yeah, about a year after my a panic attack. So a
Okay.
year after my panic attack, it was weighing on my wife, and my wife, she broke down one night, and
Yeah.
I said, "Man, I could really lose her, right?"
Right.
And my girlfriend at the time, I could really lose her, and then I proposed,
Uh-huh.
and everything shifted, and I started doing cold showers, looking at breathing techniques. I read about Wim Hof breathing method, and
Yep.
I started doing it. It builds momentum,
Yes, snowballs.
and
Right.
it snowballed effect, and rest is history today. That's when I started my self-discovery, self-love, self-respect, and that's when I built my self-care from that foundation, because I'm scared of going back to that place.
Right.
And to this day, it's hard for me to look back because it's such a dark place.
Right.
And I'm not scared of anything else anymore. Apart from that, because I've suffered so much, and anything else is just cold showers doesn't scare me.
Right.
Running a few kilometers doesn't scare me anymore. Since I'm so scared to end up there again, everything else is so much easier. And
I got.
everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I does it get easier because you know how to pull yourself up because you know all the things that
Mm-hmm.
are working. So it's very common for people when they come out of a really deep depression or they're in that anxiety depression roller coaster and they start to feel better to feel then anxious about it returning. That is normal. And usually the more tools we have and the more success you have at feeling good and the more time you have feeling good, then you get, I guess, more comfortable, but that fear of it coming back, I'm not sure ever completely goes away.
Yeah. No, it's there. It's always there, and
Yeah.
it's a reminder for me that I can't slip up. And the fact
Right.
that I can do things, the fact that I have tools that I learned from how to get up and how to navigate myself through a bad time helps me a lot to bounce back, right? And
Right.
it's such an amazing experience because I always say this, I if I had to go through that again,
Yeah.
I would, because it created this other stronger person in front of you right now, helping, wanting to help a lot of people too, because I a lot of people are needlessly suffering, and it's not knowing what care really means and what healthy really means, because they have one idea of health but they're not applying it into other aspects of their life, right? It's
Right.
you know this better than I do. This is the holistic health that we have to really focus on, and those principles that you build from that experience help me towards just a better health for me.
Yeah, feeling good now.
Mhm.
Yeah, you mentioned the pillars. So, we're talking about holistically because I think some of us think we know what holistic means, but
Mhm.
maybe we don't really know until you really start going in
Mhm.
that direction, and then more comes, and you learn more, and you. So maybe the pillars. What are the those pillars that you were talking about for health?
Yes, so the four pillars is, good sleep,
Yeah.
managing your stress,
Yep.
movement, and
Yep.
nutrition.
Mhm.
Even just one, if you don't if you focus on three and you leave the one out,
Mhm.
your house is gonna break. Your Everything's gonna fall. You have to really focus on the three, because if you have your nutrition down into if you're counting calories, if whatever, and you're not sleeping well, right? You're stressed at work, you have a stressful environment,
Mhm.
it's not gonna work. And if you're not moving,
Mhm.
you're not doing yourself justice. And I'm not an expert at this, but it's just from my experience that applying all four
Yeah.
helped me get to where I am today.
Right.
And yeah,
Which
health
is
and nutrition
yeah.
is the biggest thing there.
Yeah, so let's get into nutrition because that's where
Mhm.
you found the biggest improvement in your
Mhm.
mental health. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I think
And
that's surprising to people. I still to this day, it's even kind of surprising to me when I have something and then my mood, I'm really like irritable or grouchy.
mhm,
And I'm like, I know this. And I
what they eat.
still, yeah, I'm like, what did I eat? This is, usually I know exactly what it is. Um, but I think people do not realize how much their mood is related to their food. So,
Yeah, yeah, no, because I think for me it starts with not trusting the system anymore. I couldn't sleep. I went to my doctor and gave me sleeping pills. Okay, so I don't think sleeping was my problem. I think I
yeah.
have
Mhm.
a very stressful environment, and some self-inflicted stress.
Mhm.
But it wasn't sleeping,
Right.
and they gave me sleeping pills.
Right.
And
Didn't ask
another
you about your lifestyle, didn't ask
no.
you about your stress, didn't ask you about your diet because that's rarely, yeah,
Yeah.
right.
No, and I'm always opposed to medications anyways, and I'm like, okay, why are you giving me something that
Mm,
they don't even explain what it is. They just give you something,
to try.
and
Right.
something to try, and then
Mhm.
another, and then if it doesn't work after 4 days, they give you something else, something stronger. So that's when my distrust with the system came to start. And so I looked at alternative ways. So during the pandemic also, I was on a low fat diet. Mostly what I thought was healthy was chicken breast and broccoli.
Right. That's what we
Just
all thought. Yeah. Beef broccoli, plain chicken, grilled chicken. Yeah.
yeah,
Low
and
fat, all your veggies. Yeah, I know.
yeah, and just living for the weekends, weekly cheat days.
Yep.
And that was my last 3 years before keto. And I still, at the time, I still have chronic anxiety, depression. But since I've incorporated, these practices, meditation, breathing, it was manageable. But when I started working on myself, I have no clue again what healthy meant. And there was still something missing. It was nutrition.
Right.
And then I gained like 30 pounds a few months into when everything
Lockdown.
locked down. Yeah.
Right.
I wasn't because I've been working out 3 4 times in a week. And then when everything shut down, I didn't have any equipment at home to
Mhm.
continue working out. And I'm working from home, and I'm always home. There's always food in the kitchen.
Yeah.
I'm always eating, and everything shut down. So where are you gonna go? You can't you can't really go anywhere because they shut it all down. And I heard keto from my cousin, and luckily I didn't Google it because I just trusted him.
Oh,
Because
there you go.
if I had Googled it, I wouldn't have started, because there's a lot of misinformation on the internet.
Right.
And
That's right.
when he said, "Hey, it worked," he lost about 100 pounds on it. So
Oh, wow.
I
Okay.
believe he's okay. He's healthy. So I'm like, I um I tried it. I jumped into it, and then lo and behold, I lost the 30 pounds, but my energy started to come back. I didn't
Yeah.
know it's coming back. I didn't know what feeling good means
That's
until,
a good point. Yeah,
yeah.
most people don't. And you think you feel okay until you start feeling really good. And you're like, what? I didn't
Yeah.
know. So, what were you doing? So, you didn't Google anything. What did your cousin tell you to do? And you did it.
Yeah. No, he just said, restrict your carbohydrates
Yep.
and focus on your protein, and, eat a little bit bacon, right?
Okay. So,
And
you didn't go like hardcore into the fat.
no,
You just
not really.
just lowered the carbs, stayed true to the protein, and added a little
Yeah.
bit of fat.
and
Okay.
and, and it wasn't that clean too, because not as clean, not as strict now. It was dirty keto looking back,
Sure.
but I still lost the weight. And just cutting out the processed foods are, and seed oils
Right.
now has tremendous, healing effect, because without those, y- your body's just healthier.
Yeah. Well,
um
you're reducing the
mhm,
inflammation.
yeah,
Then your body can do what it needs
yeah,
to do and heal, as opposed to trying to deal with all the junk you're throwing at it.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I can list all of what keto did for me, but I didn't research. What I did was, I started when it was all happening. I started reaching out to people on social media. It explained to me what's going on. So I started interviewing them through just messaging them, right? What's
Right.
going on? And this lady wanted to, it's just really nice to me. And the community is very nice.
Yes.
You can reach out to everybody, and they're willing to tell their story.
Yes.
And that's when I realized I have to tell this lady's story and my story, because there's not a lot of things online. There's not a lot of good things about keto online, first of all.
Mhm.
So I'm like, okay, I have to really share this story. And I started my podcast, invited her on, and I am just in disbelief on what people what eating well can do for your body, and the changes that it can do to people. Like, I've had people on the show who reversed type 2 diabetes, had somebody who had 40 years of major depression went away,
Yep.
dissolved their anxiety. And and it's just mind-boggling to me, because I even had, I had you on the show. I have other doctors on the show, just talking about how their training was inadequate or incorrect about nutrition,
Mhm.
and how open they are in talking about it, because they want to help other people too.
Right. Yeah, you want to get it right. And when you
Yeah.
learn better, you share it. So I love how it was just naturally came about that you're like, I think I want to tell these people's, I want to tell this woman's story. I want to tell my story and help other people. And now you've got this great podcast that's constantly putting out good information. So when did you lost weight, which is very
Mhm.
motivating. I have to say that's one of the things about when you figure out a way of eating that you don't feel
Mhm.
deprived. I'm guessing
Yeah.
much better than the grilled chicken and broccoli that you were trying to, and then living for the weekend.
Yeah.
It is an adjustment, I think, too, because it's just a lifestyle actually. So
Yeah.
for you, did you shift into more of a lifestyle as you're interviewing people, you're learning more,
Mhm.
you're experimenting with yourself? I'm guessing that you moved away from more dirty keto to a
Yeah.
cleaner keto.
Yeah, no, so when I started interviewing people, I just
Mhm.
invited anyone and everyone on the show. And so anyone who has a story, anyone, people who had lost 300 pounds,
Mhm.
and I just want to, you know, I don't really care if anyone listened in the beginning,
Yeah,
because I just want that one person like me, because I didn't have any resources like I have right now. And I just want to have that, because for me, for you to be able to learn something new, it's easier if you learn it from an experience of an individual, not
sure.
not from a book, or and don't get me wrong, I mean,
Yeah, no, I like
education is
story
great.
myself. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very motivating to hear
Mhm.
a real live story of success.
Somebody may resonate, right?
Yeah, yeah.
My story can, you know what, in the beginning, I didn't like sharing my story because I was so afraid of what my people say.
Mhm.
And I'm so
Mhm.
afraid that they might, flag me or whatever. But now I don't really care, because I really want to share.
Yeah,
And if it helps one person, then I did my job. And for me, it shifted now into more of, just helping people like me who has suffered from depression and anxiety. And now we have a new development with metabolic psychiatry, just a
yeah,
grassroots movement.
yeah.
um, and I'm trying to stay in line with that, because that's where I'm coming from. That's where my experience is. And so I've been inviting people on the show to talk about mental health, and just
Mhm.
how to, no, also sustainable living, and how to create that sustainable lifestyle.
So what do you mean by that? What does that entail for you?
Yeah. So for me, just teaching them about creating the right foundations, not jumping into anything right away, and understanding that you have to know your goals first of all. And when you know your goals, you you start small simple steps. Learned it from Limitless, from Jim Quick. You really have the three S's: small simple steps.
Mhm.
Making this is a lifestyle change. You don't really want to jump into a diet, and then you feel restricted, and so you fall off.
Right.
So you really want to learn why you're doing it,
Mhm.
why this is important, why some certain foods create inflammation in the body. Because
Mhm.
when you know why, that guides your decisions.
Mhm.
And then when you're really if you're struggling and you're really down, and we all have those days, you can go back to that. And since you know why you're doing it, it guides your decision. Now we really have to also be kind to ourselves. Of course, we
Mhm.
make mistakes, we slip up, right?
Right.
But it becomes easier to bounce back when you have that foundation,
Yeah, when you
right?
know your goals and so that's what
Mm-hmm.
you mean by
Mm-hmm.
sustainable, is that you're
Yeah.
making it so that it simple and
Yeah.
people and small steps so that people and know why you're
Mhm.
doing what you're doing and going back to your goals
Yeah.
so that and then really understanding because a lot of people will say, "Oh, I tried keto, it didn't work for me." And I
Mhm.
think that's because they had some really bad information or didn't have the
Yeah.
support, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for me, I think anything keto is really new. And I say that not because not I know it's they call it a fad diet for a reason.
Right.
And for me it isn't a fad diet. It's been around, it's a metabolic state
Right.
of the
Ketosis.
body,
Right.
right?
It's a metabolic state. Right.
And it's been around for because human beings wouldn't survive this long
You
if we
wouldn't be
didn't
here.
have that state. There are phases in our human history that there's no food, there's famine, and then when there's abundance of food, you we store it in our body fat, right? um and sorry, I lost my thought. What's the question again?
Was just
Sorry.
talking about like keto's not it's not the ketosis like a keto diet maybe
Mhm.
fad maybe new maybe some misinformation out there but ketosis is actually a metabolic state and we wouldn't have survived without the ability to flip the switch and be able to burn those ketones for energy.
Yeah, so when we're talking about
Mhm.
just changing your lifestyle, I
Yeah.
believe people have to really start from the beginning because why do kids learn quicker than adults do?
Yeah.
Because they have a beginner's mind. They're unassuming, they don't assume anything about the subject, and they just want to learn and want to absorb the information. I
Mhm.
believe that's what we have to do in the beginning. I
I got
believe that we
you.
have to suspend everything that we know about keto or health and just learn. And number two is we have to forget our limitations, right? Maybe we tell ourselves that, oh, I've tried the diet and it didn't work, and oh, I tried all the diets and nothing works for me. I
Mhm.
want you to forget about your limitations for a second and
Mhm.
then just learn about this and start fresh. Identify your goals, know your goals, and know what you want to achieve, right? Do you want to lose weight? Or you want to improve your fitness, reduce stress, whatever? Once you have identified your goals,
Mhm.
write it down, to achieve them and make it specific, measurable,
Mhm.
and as make it as so that it's achievable for you. Right now we have different capacities that you have to really know yourself, and then you start small and again you start small simple steps, making this is a lifestyle change that we're talking about, right?
Right.
This can be overwhelming for somebody, so it's really essential to start small in the beginning.
Yeah.
So if you want to improve your diet, start by making one healthy change, right?
Mhm.
One change, such as maybe not drinking sugary drinks, right?
Mhm.
Start there and then start eliminating other things, start eliminating the junk foods, the processed foods, and then now connect with your feelings, because if you're not connecting with what you're feeling after eating, you're not gonna make that connection,
Right.
right? Basically, so you have to really connect your feelings to what you're eating, make that connection, and
Mhm.
then once you make that connection, oh, I really felt good when I'm not eating processed foods.
Mhm.
Okay, and now you're aware of that, and then
Mhm.
when you do eat junk food, you ask yourself again, why did I eat this way? And then you just build that connection
Mhm.
for connection with your food. Some
Right.
people don't have that. Some people don't connect the two, eating and feeling good. I
Yeah.
think that's where the disconnect is.
Right. I agree. Yeah,
Mhm.
100%. I think people, yeah, or we're in a hurry or we're just not thinking that it actually matters that much. Or so I always tell people that mood follows food. So pay
Mhm.
attention, after you've had something to eat, just notice your digestion, your
Mhm.
mood, and your energy. Did you crash? Did you have enough energy to get you to, your next meal? How are you feeling?
Yeah.
That just sometimes the awareness will be helpful. Sometimes it's not quite, and it's just a small little step. But yeah, a lot of people don't know what they feel. And so they're not that takes a little bit of time to figure out what is it that you're actually feeling. And we are feeling beings. So it's surprising sometimes that how much people don't recognize what they're feeling because they have shoved it down, pushed it away, or ignored it, whatever, for so long.
Yeah. I was coaching this gentleman,
Mhm,
and I asked him, "Why are you eating breakfast?" And he told me, "Well, because I've been doing it for so long."
mhm,
And he didn't even say he was hungry. He doesn't trust his hunger hormone. His hunger signals enough
mhm.
that and that's what I mean.
Yeah.
People really just do because the people around him does it,
Yeah.
right? And it's
We've been
so
doing it
common.
for a long
They've been
time.
doing it for a long time, and they're not even questioning why they're doing things.
And does it even make sense in my body? Even if the
Yeah,
rest of the world it makes sense, does it really actually make sense for me? Yeah.
yeah.
So
People
being
don't. People
yeah,
have to question what they're doing.
yeah.
People have to question why I'm feeling this. Oh, why did this happen? And why am I doing this in the first place? And why am I why am I taking this medication? What does it do for me? People don't ask questions, and people, even people who gets diagnosed, they don't know what type 2 diabetes is. I have 3 people in my life that has type 2 diabetes. I asked them about it, and they don't know what it is. They
I
say
know.
it's a family thing. They say in our genes that
Right.
we're it's like they don't know what type 1 and type 2's the difference between the 2 is,
Right. And they don't
right?
know that it's reversible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
So
don't know
that's
enough about that
yeah.
they don't ask questions. They just, they should trust their doctors enough, but you have to know what
Yeah.
you have too.
Yeah, no, and do your own. No, because especially with doctors don't have enough time to keep up with everything and do their job. It's not actually a very good job because you're
Yeah.
just going from place to place, you're indoors all the time. It's not a good lifestyle. But you don't have time to be constantly digging into new unless you I think the people who experience their own illness who happen to be doctors
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
are failed by their,
Yes,
by
yes.
their profession, then start digging and figuring things out. But it's rare that you find somebody is that's not touched by it personally that starts digging. But yeah, as a consumer, ask a lot of questions. What does this even mean? And half the time, a diagnosis is really just a list of symptoms. It doesn't tell you anything about cause.
Hmm.
So I think we're asking the wrong questions often about, even when we are asking questions, it's not about, we're asking, why certain symptoms, but we're not asking what's under that pain. Like, where's it really coming from?
I want to ask you,
Yeah.
what do you think about this? I don't want doctors to scare their patients, but I want the patients to know the prognosis. I want the
Mm.
patients to know
Where
what
you're
will happen
headed.
down the line if I take this medication, because most of the time they don't, the patient doesn't know. If you
Right.
take this medication, this might happen in the future because this has a side effect.
Yeah.
And then
Hmm.
in give him statistics of what might happen, because
Hmm.
that may push that patient to look another direction.
Right.
Right. What do you think about that? I don't know.
Right. Well, I
Just
think it's
throwing
really
out there.
important because a drug is not we call them side effects, but they're really just effects. The drug's going to have some effects that you want and some effects that you don't want. And the ones that you don't want, we call them side. But
Mhm.
they're really, you might want to know a lot about what it's actually doing to your brain, to your liver. How are you going to get off this stuff if you
Mhm.
want to get off of it? Can you titrate off of it? Is it addictive? Is it, what are the successes? What's the success rate of people on it and off it?
Mhm.
Like what are the options? Yeah, no. And I don't think half the time the way that doctors prescribe, I don't know that they know,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
And I think it's particularly for mental health. I think I love that we have a lot more psychiatrists now that are metabolic psychiatrists,
Mhm.
interested in nutritional psychiatrists, helping people figure out alternatives to the medicine or reducing their medicine if they do want to be on it. But I think
Here's
it's so new.
yeah. And thank you for answering that because I want to give you another. Well, I want to throw another example to you. I don't know if you're familiar with the Charlie Foundation. So
Yeah.
their story, their son Charlie has epilepsy. Their doctor, the doctor knew about the ketogenic diet, but since they haven't exhausted all the medication, the options, and since they haven't tried all of it, the doctor hasn't even mentioned the diet.
Right.
And he was interviewed and he said, well, we really haven't exhausted all the options yet. I mean, there are still medications that we haven't tried.
Mhm.
That's what he said.
Right.
And then he was then asked why doctors seem to be ignoring the ketogenic diet. And he
Right.
said, well, because in my opinion, I think because the ketogenic diet isn't backed up by some drug company.
Yeah.
And so if maybe if they market sausage and eggs with sauce that could cure epilepsy, then it's never gonna happen.
Mm.
So it's just tell you that and it still happens to this day that a lot of the doctors are not incentivized
Right.
to talk about the diet,
There's no money to be made
the money to be made.
for you to go figure out that you could just use a ketogenic lifestyle, whole foods ketogenic diet, nutritional ketosis, and end up not needing the
Yeah.
medication, which is, I mean, a lot of with mental health too. So when did your mental health actually clear? When did you start seeing the clearing?
Man, I wanna say in the first 3 months.
Okay, that's
I
pretty
wanna
quick.
say in the first 3 months. And it's at the moment I wasn't realizing it, but looking back, I was really so curious. So, people say that they don't have time to do things. They don't have time to do their hobbies because they're so tired of work
Hmm.
and they don't have energy.
Hmm.
And that wasn't the case for me after the ketogenic diet. I started all of these things on the
Yeah,
side. I started a
so much
business.
energy. Yeah.
I had so much energy. I wasn't realizing at that time, but looking back, I started so many things that I couldn't start. And it was just everything was clearing up and it was
Mhm.
man, it was the fact that I really don't have any business be having a podcast and having it uh you know grow it to this point.
Mhm.
I never imagined myself,
Mhm.
now I'm talking with you on
Yeah.
this show, trying to help people and
Yeah.
tell about my story because it works. And I want to tell people that
Mhm.
there's hope. They don't have to be on medication if you don't have to.
Right. Or
There's
even if,
another option.
yeah, there's another and even if you feel pretty good, you could feel even better if
Mhm.
you just figure out the nutrition piece. I think that
Yeah.
people have a hard time realizing that, but it is absolutely true that we're designed to heal. And what I think is interesting is specifically about a ketogenic diet, a whole foods ketogenic diet, where you're eating good quality fat. Good quality fat is very usable. It's full of electrons
Hmm.
that's usable. So I think there's this benefit that your body can utilize the ketones in the brain. In studies where they've, in a petri dish, they introduce a glucose molecule and a ketone molecule to a brain cell, and the brain cell will pick the ketone every time. Like,
Hmm.
so it's, there's some good science, but there's also the way that you feel. And I think when you start having more
Yes.
energy, you realize, okay, so there's something to this. And I think that's the biggest piece of evidence is that when you have
Yeah.
an experience where you start to feel better and everything, when the darkness starts to lift, I mean, I don't think there's anything greater than that experience.
Yes. So the first question is, so how do you feel? I want the doctor to ask that question. So how do you feel? How do you feel after that? How do you feel after a run? How do you feel after you ate uh, a keto meal, whatever?
Mhm.
What do you feel if you're, because that's your evidence. You
Right,
know, it's not so much the weighing scale, but how do you feel,
right,
right?
right, right. Is your brain clear? Can you make
Mm,
decisions? Like,
yeah.
and I think it's hard when people have a foggy brain and can't make decisions. So I don't know how I feel. I feel lousy all the time, you
Yeah,
know,
because it's all the time.
all the time.
What do you feel? It's the same thing. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, but what is that?
Yeah. I
Right?
think that's a good point. That's a good question. So your life now is very different than when you started.
Oh
Even in
yes.
2020, let's just right there. I mean, yeah. How is
Yeah.
how is it that you feel on most days?
Well, you know what? I started every time I have somebody on that interests me, their lifestyle,
Yeah.
I add it on my I'll add it to my toolbox.
Right. That's what I was gonna ask. Like, yeah, so you have people on, they say something interesting, and you're like, "Oh, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
nice."
So every time somebody comes on that says something that I haven't tried, because for me, I would try everything, and if it's not for me, it's not for me. That's what people don't realize is, okay, if this is why I ask just this is why I make this statement with a client or with a friend. I always say, so if your lifestyle is working, then don't change anything, right?
Great.
You don't even have to name your diet keto diet. No, just cut out this, cut out that. You don't have to name it. You don't have to say I'm on the
Yeah,
keto diet. You don't
yeah,
have to do that.
great.
You just have to know what works for your body and what works for you and what's
Right,
sustainable for you, right? Now,
right.
if your lifestyle is not working, then start trying
Different things.
other things,
Yeah.
different things. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So that's what I do. So
Yeah, I love the
I'm
trial and error. Yeah, so what are you doing that you've learned about?
so I'm I'm mostly on a carnivore keto lifestyle.
Yep.
So I would go carnivore when I'm feeling sort of not myself
Mhm.
and I want to clean it out.
Like
I
that.
would go on a keto. I would go on a carnivore diet. So basically, just your meat and
Mhm.
salt and water. That's
Right.
it. And then fasting, extended fasting sometimes. But when I would, just because my family is keto, so I would see some keto snacks. They would bake something. I would try it, and I'm just happy that they're on the ketogenic diet.
Yes.
I'm just happy. So,
Right.
so when I smell that baked goods, of course, my respect to my wife, I will eat some, right? but but I know it's keto, it's clean, and I would have a couple, and so that's why I love that they're keto because there's not
Mhm.
any junk around,
Yeah.
and they love it. And people think about keto as very restrictive,
Yeah.
and whenever people say that,
Mhm.
then I don't think you really know what it means to be
R-
keto,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
You,
no.
you probably think you've already read something somewhere
Right.
that you didn't like.
Mhm.
And for me, those people, I think also when you're reading articles about keto, don't just read the headline, look into it, look at the stores,
Mhm.
really before you make that judgment about something,
Mhm.
really look at the source because there's something that came out online about keto and how it causes and heart disease. I don't know if you've heard that.
No. I
Um
mean, I've heard people worry about that, but I
yeah,
see
worry
all the
about that.
evidence of the opposite is
Yeah.
actually
And
where.
the community that look into, so yeah, it wasn't even a study. So it wasn't even published. So this is just an
Right.
article of somebody who presented at the conference. So this presentation says keto like, and I believe it said in the lines of 20%, 25% carbohydrates to
Mm-hmm.
a normal, to an average consumer. And
Mm-hmm.
that's, you do the math. If 2,000 calories is the average,
Mm-hmm.
25% carbohydrates is 150 carbohydrates,
Grams, right. Which is
grams,
not keto.
not keto.
Yeah.
So when you use keto like, and then you're
Yeah.
not reading, for the normal consumer, that's bad for you. Hey,
I
keto,
know.
bad for you. So
Yeah.
really, you really have to be. So that's the lifestyle that we talk about, right? You
Right.
can't have just on the keto diet and not research about it, because obviously you have to really learn and educate yourself about it, because people are gonna ask, right? Okay, hey, what's keto? What
Yeah.
are you on? And then they'll maybe make fun of you. But since you know a lot about it, you may change that person's mind. Hey, brother, right? This is keto. This is what it did for me. Oh, why did it do for you? What why did it do that effect? Well, because this and that, right? You know what to say, and you're giving yourself that knowledge to be able to pass it into somebody
Mhm.
who may look like they're making fun, but they really want to learn.
Right. Well, especially when they see that you keep looking better and have energy and
Yeah,
have this great life. So you eat carnivore keto and can go
carnivore
back
keto,
and forth. And
back and
then
forth.
what else are you still doing? Like the cold therapy? Do you do some
Yeah,
ice baths or?
yeah. So this is my morning routine. I
Okay.
get up at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
I go straight to cold showers
Hmm.
for about a couple minutes in there, and after that I go do some breathing exercises, the Wim Hof method,
Yeah.
which are always, um, the reason why I started that too is when I would go for a run, I feel this energy, and especially when I do it in the morning,
Yeah.
I feel the difference. I could socialize, I could talk to people. Whenever I don't, I'm just, by myself, really not um, conversing with other people. But when I started running, it really lights a spark in me
Yeah.
to have I have that energy, and I find breathing to do the same thing.
Uh-huh.
And so
Okay.
if I couldn't run, I would do the breathing meditation. So I do breathing meditation right after cold showers. And then
Hmm.
after cold showers, I'm going into meditation for 20 minutes.
Hmm.
And after that, grateful. I got a couple of notebooks. I got my intentions notebook and my gratitude journal.
Right.
So I start my day with gratitude. I think that's really important, right? I think the most important thing that you have to do, more important than breathing meditation, is gratitude for me. Is just being grateful to, because being grateful meaning you're mindful of what you're doing. You're mindful of what you accomplish. You're
Right.
mindful of where you are. Meaning, if you're mindful of what came about or what happened in the past that isn't now for the better,
Right.
you're mindful, you're grateful for that, and
Right.
being grateful makes you just mindful for everything that happened. And then after that, I actually quit coffee, so
Yeah,
it's
I thought you had said you did. Yeah.
yeah. So my podcast is called Ketones and Coffee.
Yeah.
I actually quit coffee in January
Right.
because I really want to get rid of some anxiety. I do feel some anxiety, but not severe,
Right.
right? And so I really want to get rid of that. And when in January, I wanted to get rid of something. What else can I get rid of? I get rid of everything else. And when I thought of coffee, I couldn't even say it out loud. I couldn't even say it to my wife.
That's funny.
Man, because I couldn't even bring myself to say it. I'm like, okay, I have to do it now. So I quit coffee, but rest is history. The first week was brutal, right? And
Mhm.
just the depression came. after that, but after a week it was gone.
Right.
I think being on keto helped a lot. Not sure what the science is because I did quit coffee before and it gave me a massive headache, but no headaches, and I have a lot of resources. I was drinking tea, caffeine free tea with MCT oil. I think helps.
Yep.
So I quit coffee, and in the beginning, I thought I would quit it for 30 days,
Yeah.
and it's been what,
Yeah.
4 months now.
Yeah.
I don't need the energy because I thought I needed coffee for energy,
Right. Yeah.
but I do cold showers. That will give you massive
The
energy you need.
breathing, the cold showers, the
Breathing,
gratitude too will
meditation,
actually.
gratitude. I'm
Yeah.
like, I
Yeah.
don't need it. I
Yeah.
don't.
And are you going outside? Do
Oh
you?
yes. Yes.
Okay.
So my wife and I, we always walk outside, get some sun,
Mhm.
and thank you to Dr. Kelly here for, we when I had you on the show, you talked about some things that I am grateful for because it really, helped us, and it's a family bonding thing for us too.
Right.
And it helped us, enlightening our days. So being outside, out in the sun, really helps a lot.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love it. Is there anything else that you would say that we didn't cover that you're like, people need to know, especially for mental health and nutrition or any of these things? Or feels like we covered most of it,
Mm.
but
Yeah, we covered most of it, but I really want to say that, if you really want to start, we talked about it earlier, that you really have to have a beginner's mind. That
yeah,
when you start something, don't assume anything about the subject. Really learn about it, absorb the information, and then try it for yourself. And then if it works, make sure you're connecting with yourself, asking yourself the right questions, and learning about yourself first, learning about how you feel whenever you eat. Make that connection with what you're eating and build that foundation, and don't jump into it cold turkey. Know what you're starting, know your goals, right? What do you want to achieve? And then don't really jump into it right away. Start small. Start with maybe, you know, eliminating one thing. And then as you go along, keep asking yourself, what's working and what's not working, and just create that routine. And create that, it just creates that
the
uh
momentum.
the moment, when you're sticking to it,
Yeah.
you feel, makes you feel better, right?
Yeah. And I think it's okay if if it gets confusing. I was just thinking sometimes it feels like you make 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. You're like, what's happening? Like if things are coming up, just to stay curious. And I think the other piece may be honesty. Like just get real about it. If you
Yeah,
are, if you
yeah,
don't want to give up, so if you can't even say give up coffee, and you're like, all right, I might need to give up coffee.
yeah.
Like that's a level of honesty that I think
Yeah.
once you're in a lifestyle that is trial and error and supportive of your health, these are the things that come up where you can get really honest
Mhm,
about and take like real responsibility
mhm.
for every choice that you're making in your life. So, yeah,
Absolutely,
I appreciate
absolutely. And
that.
celebrate your success, all right?
That's a
Celebrate
big
your
one.
success, small wins.
Yeah. Yeah. Not with a big piece of cake, but yeah.
No, yeah. That comes along with the
Yeah.
reward system that we talk about. But
Yeah. No.
if yeah,
Yeah. But yeah, celebrate any small win.
mhm.
That's amazing. Well, Lorenz, I've loved every minute of talking to you. I appreciate you so much coming on, telling your story, helping people. I love it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kelly. Appreciate you having me on. Thank you so much. I really love your show, and continue sharing the information, because a lot of people out there really are misinformed, and there's a lot of people that are needlessly suffering. So I appreciate your time, and thank you so much.